Black and White were anomalies among the mainline Pokémon games. They strayed away from the traditional animalistic designs of prior games in favor of more inclusive designs. This one's literally just an ice cream cone. The highlight of the game for most people was the introduction of a more mature plotline, one that made the player ponder on whether or not battling Pokémon was morally justifiable. N served as the face of this ideology. Unlike many may think, his unique beliefs weren't just coincidence, it was a result of the careful planning of Ghetsis, the true mastermind behind Team Plasma, who adopted N while he was still an orphan and molded him into the king of Team Plasma. He isolated him from other humans, only exposing him to Pokemon that were abused. This living arrangement curated N's belief that Pokemon would never become perfect beings as long as they're held captive by humans. We first encounter N in Accumula Town, blending in with the crowd and listening to Ghetsis' speech regarding the relationship between people and Pokemon. This is where he first implants the idea that we're the problem. He's charismatic, making us and the crowd feel as if we're the plague in the Pokemon world poisoning Pokemon. And further reinforces the idea by scrutinizing the mere idea of a Pokédex, pointing out the needless mass and capture of Pokemon that won't even be used, an undeniable flaw with the Pokédex. He challenges us to a battle where he's promptly defeated. He parrots the beliefs of Ghetsis, stating, "As long as Pokemon are confined in Pokeballs, Pokemon will never be perfect beings." We meet with N again in Akron City. This time he seems far more convicted than before. After his defeat, he claims, "I need power, enough to make anyone agree with me." But it's here we can observe something weird about his team patterns. He doesn't retain the same team from our first encounter with him in Accumula Town. Instead, his party seems to be made up of Pokemon native to the area. This implies that N actually practices what he preaches, only using Pokemon temporarily and for his seemingly righteous goal of freeing all Pokemon, as opposed to keeping his Pokemon encapsulated at all times, ready to be summoned at a whim, like we the trainer. We're greeted by N again in Chargedon Cave, or rather escorted to him by the Shadow Triad, where he once again restates his unwavering beliefs. Many different values mixed together, and the world becomes grey. That is unforgivable. I will separate Pokemon and people, and Black and White will be clearly distinct. Now at first glance, this statement seems a little prejudice-filled, but let's break it down. The different values he's talking about refers to the differing beliefs of all the people in the Pokemon world. Some might believe it's okay to use Pokemon for battle, while some people might not. That's just an example, of course. All those values mixed together, making an unclear mess. Or the grey he was talking about. He sees this as unforgivable. This is because he sees his ideology as the only correct one. The ideology that Pokemon and people must be separated, or put metaphorically, separating the black and the white. With his words still lingering in the air, he challenges us to our third battle. After being bested, he turns his attention to Professor Juniper and begins berating her for endorsing the Pokédex. In response, Professor Juniper foreshadows the entire purpose of the game. She says, "Looks like you're not my biggest fan. Your opinion is understandable. It happens to be different from mine, which is equally understandable. How about if all people get to decide for themselves how they relate to Pokemon?" In passing, this seems like a really straightforward and throwaway line that most people wouldn't even blink at. But it's a lot more intricate than you think, specifically in the context of N, who thinks everyone else's ideology is flawed, and that his is the only definitive and correct way of thinking. Of course, the significance of this line doesn't hit until much later in the story. Time passes without event. We go on collecting gym badges, catching Pokemon, until we get to the 6th gym, and it's here we see the first symptoms of change in N. He greets us by saying, "They may say it is for understanding one another better, but what trainers really use battle for is to compete. They hurt each other's Pokemon." Am I the only one who finds this terribly painful? It's clear from his tone that his solidarity in his goal makes him feel conflicted. He seems almost perplexed as to why he was the only one that saw the quote-unquote abuse Pokemon were going through. We get to see more of this subtle shift in Dragon Spiral Tower, where he finally fulfills his outlandish previous claims and catches one of the legendary dragons. At this point, you'd expect N to relish in his victory, proclaiming he was right all along, and catching the legendary dragon proves so. But instead, he invites us, the player, to collect the opposing Dragon Stone, whether it be the Black Stone for Zekrom or the White Stone for Reshiram, and try to stop him. This declaration by N isn't just for plot convenience, it means a little more than that. At the start, N criticized every differing ideology from his own, a far cry from his current stance, inviting us to challenge him on even grounds. Maybe he was curious as to whether the opposing dragon would also recognize our dreams the same way his did. Perhaps he thought he'd find the answer as to why society didn't share his beliefs, or maybe he was confident that whoever's ideals were right would come out on top. Nonetheless, we succeed in collecting the stone and make our way to the Pokemon League, only to find the champion older shamed in his defeat by none other than N. He declares, "You and I both put our beliefs on the line and fought with all our strength, and I won. Do not say another word." It's pretty obvious here that N has changed without him even realizing. Instead of monologuing about his desires and ambitions, he communicated his point through battling. Let me say that again. He communicated his point through battling. The same man that solemnly subscribed to the belief people only use Pokemon to compete. Of course, N hadn't realized his own hypocrisy yet. Not until our final battle, where we're face to face with his legendary dragon, and suddenly summon our own. The rest goes as you'd expect. N losing, Getis appearing and pretty much explaining how he was evil all along and just using N. But it's at the very end that we see the true point of the game, when the player and N are all alone. He asks to speak with the player. Of course we silently accept, and N finally reveals the fruits of his endeavors. Two heroes living at the same time, one that pursues truth and one that pursues ideals. Could they both be right? I don't know. It's not by rejecting different ideas, but by accepting different ideas, that the world creates a chemical reaction. This is truly the formula for changing the world. N never understood the player. In the end, if he did, it would have taken away from the impact of his final message. Whether it's battling or simply sitting down and having a cup of tea, we all connect in different ways. Both are correct. The whole point of Pokemon Black and White is that it's never black and white. There's just the grey that N hated so much. The same one he realized can still be correct, despite how messy it gets. We never end up seeing N again in Black and White, as he flies away into the sunset to figure things out. I think it's better that way. His mystique and unique aura was what made him such a marvel, by far one of the most interesting and unique rivals to this day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment with your favorite rival and what video you want to see from me next. I'll catch you all in the next one.